Welcome to Shrimperscast with me, Paul Hill.
And me, Steve Mansfield. On today's show,
Shrimpers damned by Beavers crashing out of cup on penalties.
Consortium issues a takeover statement to steady the nerves just in time for Christmas.
I catch up with Miss Southend United herself, April Smith.
And we look forward to a tricky encounter at home against Bromley this weekend. Hello and welcome to Shrimperscast. I'm here with Paul Hill. How you doing, Paul? You all right, mate?
Very well, sir. Very well. How are you?
Yeah, all good. All good. We're back with another episode. We had a fallow week last week. The game got postponed, didn't it? So the Wealdstone game. So the weather called that off. So we thought, well, the weather's going to call off the podcast as well. We thought if the players are having a rest, we're going to have a rest as well. So we did take a little bit of a break last week, but we are back with a vengeance, aren't we, Paul?
Here we are, indeed. Yes.
Yeah, we're very well rested. Well, I am, but actually you're not, are you? You've been globetrotting, haven't you, Paul?
Yeah, just a little bit. I went over to Geneva.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, to the United Nations for the Sporting Chance Forum, which was a fantastic experience. 4 days out there. Very cold, but brilliant. Very expensive.
Really expensive city, but I've been myself. Really clean, right?
Very clean.
Really clean, really nice, really sort of... that's my overarching memory of it.
Well, when you're paying 10 quid a beer, you expect it to be tidy, don't you?
yeah. You want the glass to be clean, at least. So just tell me though, Paul, how often did you rock the Shrimperscast t-shirt while you were out there? That was your only mission.
And yes, I successfully achieved the objective by wearing it on my first night out there. Did a little tour of a few pubs. Ended up in an Irish bar, funnily enough.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so big shout out to Mulligan's Irish Bar out there in Geneva. We had a great time. And it was great. Yeah, fantastic. So everyone was asking who Southend are. And I've been invited to a couple of games out there for Civet and Louisiane and Avranches, probably. I think that's how you pronounce it. Not too sure, but there we are. But yeah, I'm not going back there till 2025, so hopefully they'll remember, eh?
I'm getting visions of Del Boy here with your terrible accent there. Good stuff, Paul. If you haven't yet bought a Shrimperscast t-shirt, they're available on our website. If you order now, we'll get them out to you in time for Christmas as well. So do have a quick look over at shop.shrimperscast.com. They are really pretty good, if I say so myself. So, Paul, Southend United crashed out of the FA Trophy on Saturday on penalties against Hampton and Richmond. We have got our usual man in the stand, Pip AKA D1versity, coming on a little bit later to talk us through the game. But what are your thoughts? I know you weren't there, but your thoughts on that loss, Paul?
What a spectacular exit it was, wasn't it? Yeah. 2-0 up, cruising with 15 minutes to go?
Something like that, yeah.
And then, you can imagine, it was their big day out, wasn't it, at the Hall? And they fought back well. And then, losing on penalties. But to be honest, in the bigger picture, do we need a cup run? Not particularly, I don't think. I know, no disrespect to the FA Trophy and all the teams in it. It is a great competition. But considering where we are, and as we are as a football club, and, with Bare Bones FC still doing what they want to be doing, it's just, I can't really see this game. This cup run was, we could do without it, couldn't we? Yeah,
I think that's the general consensus. I think with the squad depleted, any injuries are going to be, they're going to be felt more, aren't they, by Southend than any of Southend's rivals in the National League. So, personally, it does feel like, fewer fixtures is going to be a good thing if you put your pragmatic head on.
Indeed, exactly that. Because, we're still, anything can happen in football. We get a few injuries, lose a bit of form. The teams below us are going to be fighting to stay in the league. We don't want to be dragged back down towards that relegation zone, do we?
Yeah, and Christmas is notorious, isn't it, for people picking up knocks and pulling, muscles, and it's cold and there's loads of games, and just best to kind of keep the fixture schedule light.
Indeed,
in my opinion. So
that's it. Well, everyone's going to get a cold. The snots are going to flow as well. So we need everyone on board, don't we?
Yeah, indeed. Obviously, last time we met, we were talking about the fact that there was no news from the consortium regarding the takeover. And then a week or so ago, there was some news, and the consortium have put out a statement, I think, designed to kind of reassure everyone. I'm sure all the listeners will have seen the statement by now. It sounds like things are moving forward. They've said that, there's still a little bit of, the words they've used are legal and procedural work to be done. But we are hopeful that the deal can be brought to closure shortly. And although there's no kind of final date as it stands, they've said that they will announce that as soon as they can. So I think the general mood, Paul, amongst shrimpers out there, and really, what's your opinion yourself? I think generally people are feeling pretty good about that, although it's not, the ink's not on the contracts, and the ink's not dry yet, but it feels like a little step in the right direction.
Yeah, it does. I mean, there was more protest planned, wasn't there, over at Ron's house again, because he just can't be trusted. And it was nice for Justin to put a statement out just to give a bit of reassurance of what is going on.
Yeah.
But again, just like everything with Southend, I won't believe it until I see it. And you're hearing reports of other people joining the consortium. I see a London Shrimper on Twitter who's saying there's a Canadian apparently joining that we've got to be excited about. That could be another one. There seems to be more twists and turns to this story yet. But it's just dragging on a little bit now. And we just need it done. Yeah. And that's the bottom line, isn't it?
Yeah, I think everyone would have preferred for it to have, hit the original timescales, and it just seems to be slipping. But I do go back to that chat we had with the journalist Matt Slater, who covers all of these takeovers up and down the country. And his opinion was, there's going to be stuff like this. It's always really complicated, especially when it's tied into property and the council and all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be a rocky road until it's done. But
even more so with Mr. Ron Martin selling up, because I can imagine it being very complicated indeed.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a few sort of skeletons in closets to kind of come out and stuff. Yeah, exactly. So, but all in all, it seems to be good news. Right. So, as we said, none of us could make it to the cup game on Saturday, but Paul caught up with Pip, aka D1versity, and let's have a little listen to Pip's thoughts on the game. Good morning, Pip. Thanks again for joining us on Shrimperscast. Disappointing result, disappointing loss to Hampton and Richmond in the FA Trophy on Saturday. How was it?
Good morning, Shrimperscast viewers. My name is D1versity, and I am a vlogger for Southend United who attends as many games as possible, like the nutter I am. So, you're asking me this week, guys, how was the FA Trophy game versus Hampton and Richmond on Saturday? Blues heavily controlled the game for 75 plus minutes. Pure, consistent control across the field for it all to slip away in the last 15. It's a fairy tale story for Hampton and Richmond to come from 2-0 down, to level the game, to go on to win in penalties. You can't really argue. Hampton and Richmond going into the game were in fantastic form, and they took advantage of that.
They certainly did, didn't they? But, we were 2-0 up until the 77th minute. It must have been really disappointing.
2-0 up at 77 minutes. You think, surely, Blues have this game under control. Now, we're going to see it through, but in typical Southend style, it's thrown away just like that. The first goal coming from an error from Brooklyn Cabongolo. A short back pass to Dave Martin allowed the striker for Hampton and Richmond to go round Dave and slot it in the net from a tight angle. The second goal, it like I said in the previous thing, it was fairy tale. Last minute cross whipped in the box. Unfortunate own goal for Scott Morris. He is a fan for it. He is loved by all of us. To see his head get on it, you think he's going to get this out. Sorry, he's going to go for a corner or it's going to be defended. But no, it hits the back of the net and hearts are in mouths.
Yeah, a real wounder to see Gus score that OG in injury time as well, right at the death there, especially after the season that he's had. Can't really fault the guy at all, but, just really gutted for him.
Exactly that, Steve. It was so hard to watch that header from Gus hit the back of the net past Dave Martin. Like I said previously, he's a fan favourite. Players love him. Fans love him running up and down the wing. He hypes the crowd up. He is one of the favourites to be lined up, I'd say, for player of the season this year, with the season so far he's had. But It really hurt, like I've said. I can't really explain much more, but the team galvanised. They tried to bounce back going into penalties, but it just wasn't enough. We fell short. 3 penalties saved. Fair play to the Hampton Richmond keeper. He had a blinder. It just wasn't meant to be.
No, obviously, it wasn't, and Southend are now out of that FA trophy, but you can't knock the bravery of the boys that stepped up to take those pens, can you?
Anyone who steps up to take a penalty in general, whether it was at Southend or for your national team or whatever league you're in, they deserve a pat on the back, that player. But to step up in front of 2,000 people on Saturday and try and get your team through to the next round in the trophy, it just wasn't meant to be for us Blues. Jack Wood was first out with a penalty, pretty tame if I'm honest, saved comfortably by the Hampton keeper who was on a blinder, like I've said. Nor had a penalty, he stepped up, just got it in. Their keeper did get hands to it. Villetti's, I would say, is the only confident penalty that went in nicely for us. Bar that, all penalties were tame. They were easily controlled by their keeper. He could read where we were going, and it just wasn't meant to be, unfortunately, and Blues were knocked out.
Absolutely, they were knocked out, but I think, amongst the fan base, the pragmatists will have seen the FA trophy as a bit of a distraction situation with the squad being what it is, not being able to make any new signings until that takeover and that embargo's lifted. So, Saturday, back to the hall, back to doing what we do best and focusing on the league. Hope to see you there, Pip.
Exactly that, matey. Whilst the doom and gloom of being knocked out of the cup is saddening, and a cup run is always good for any team, whatever league you're in, we can focus on the league 100%. Now, Bromley on Saturday, they're in tremendous form, similar to us in the league. It is going to be a real clash on Saturday, and I encourage all shrimpers who listen to this podcast to get the roots or support the boys. We will galvanise them onto victory. So let's get down to Roots All on Saturday. Back the boys. My name's been Diversity. I hope you've enjoyed. Thank you again, Steve, and peace.
Big thanks there to Pip AKA D1versity. Do check out his YouTube channel if you don't already. He gets to every Southend game and puts out a video. He's usually got the goals on there, so it's quite a good way to kind of see what's going on at Southend games. So he's over on YouTube at D1versity with a 1 instead of an I at the start there. Paul, we've got a really special guest this week, haven't we?
Yes.
We've been meaning to kind of cover the women's side of Southend United, and I'm really pleased that we finally got this guest onto the show. Obviously, there's been a massive explosion in the popularity of women's football, spearheaded by the Lionesses doing so well on the international stage and WSL and Champions League at that top level. And most clubs, and Southend included, have adopted that model really, and they've got two squads. You've got your men's first team and your women's first team, and Southend's women's team have seen some success this year. So we're really pleased, aren't we, to get this guest on?
Absolutely. And, well, if there was ever to be a Mrs. Southend, then this woman is exactly that. She's not only a coach, she's Wafer B. She works at the community trust down at Southend. She's always around on a match day. She coaches the men's game as well. I mean, I don't know, is there anything she doesn't do at Southend? But I've got to ask her all of these questions. So it was an absolute honour to sit down and have a chat with April Smith.
Let's have a listen.
So I am here with arguably Miss Southend United, and, well, April Smith. You do everything at the football club. Is there anything you don't do at the football club?
I don't wash pants. That's one thing I'm not going to do. I'm not going to. I've been in enough change rooms to see the state of them when they come out. So yeah, that's one thing I definitely don't do.
So yeah, give it. What do you do then? Because you do quite a bit at the football club alongside the women's football team as well. So give us a brief overview of just what you do.
So my day-to-day is like really varied, to be fair. I've celebrated 10 years this year. So literally last week was my 10 years, which I think is a celebration in itself, to be within football. So that's a really big milestone for me, considering I never thought that I would even have the opportunity to work in football, let alone do it at my local club as well. That makes a big difference. But day to day, I do a lot of, my job now is based around sort of like match day engagement. So how we can get different communities, local groups to access live sport and live football, and how they can feel part of the community. So that might be working with underrepresented groups. It might be a focus on women's and girls. It might be disability. And then I work alongside anything that's targeted intervention. So that might be around drug and alcohol, children and young people with county lines, knife crime. But I also look after sort of like the equality and diversity and inclusion. So across club and trust, so I make sure, one, it's quite an inclusive environment to work in, and all of our sessions we try to be as inclusive as we can. But what can we do to go above and beyond to make sure that we are engaging with whatever our census data is and what Southend looks like as a community? Well, what does that look like? And can we make our own little community inside Roots Hall that also reflects that? And breaking down some of those barriers. So I'll look at how we can make home games more disability inclusive, albeit it's not particularly easy when you've got a stadium that's built in 1952. But we try and do little things. So we've got, sensory bags, and we do autistic walkthroughs with kids. So yeah, I look at race equality, LGBT, gender equality. So yeah, a bit of everything really. I'm quite. A lot of people say to me, "God, it's hard to pin you down sometimes," but yeah, I like to dip my toe in a bit of everything really. So I just want to make opportunities for people, and if I can do that through sport, then even better. And if I can do it through football in Southend, then it's a no-brainer for me. So yeah, I love what I do.
Oh yeah, fantastic! Well, and congratulations on your 10 years. Brilliant stuff, absolutely. And I see you got your UEFA B as well. You've been a coach quite a long time as well, haven't you?
So I've been coaching since I was 16. So I'm 33 now. So yeah, pretty much half my life I've been out on the grass in one way or another. To be fair, it started when I went to football. I've been going to Southend games on the coach, and since I was about 14 on my own. I come from a very footballing family, so my mum and dad are both season ticket holders, have been since they were, 15, 16s. They've done, the away days on the coach, everyone together, and that's sort of like been instilled in me really. So we was on the coach one day to an away game, and the blokes were like, "Oh yeah, why don't we set up a team? Like, why don't we just set up a Sunday league team?" So they were like, "Oh yeah, you can coach." And I was like, "Don't be silly." I was like, "Don't be silly." Like, why would a bunch of blokes in their late 20s and 30s listen to me tell them how to press a fullback in a Sunday league game? Do you know what I mean? So that's where it really started for me. And they was really good. So some really, really good years with that. And then I just started coaching everyone and anyone that I could. So I would go and coach, under eights boys teams. So when you're first starting out, they'll always say, "I'll go with the mini kickers and the really young ones that there's nothing really football based. It's all just have a good time, bit of imagination." And for me, that's where your most skilled coaches have to be. So people think, your top coaches are going to be in the Premier League. Nah, they're the people that are real bread and butter to deal with, 35 kids that can barely walk. Trying to get anything out of them and developing their skills is where the real heroes are, in my opinion.
Absolutely brilliant. So, has it taken you far and wide your coaching? And
Yeah,
I've seen you. Sorry, go on.
So I've been lucky enough to coach in a few countries. To be fair, across a few different sports. To be fair, so I'm a futsal coach as well. So futsal is one of my main passions. I don't know why it's not coached from the off. You look at European countries, South American countries, and the development that it has is, I don't know why people sleep on it, to be fair. But I've got my UEFA B in futsal, so that's taken me to Portugal, Spain, Holland, Germany, Romania. So that's good. And then I got the opportunity to go out and coach in the States. I did that for 6 months, so that was really good. So I developed they have sort of like what they call travel teams. So they're like representative teams in that state. So you'll have a selection of 30 boys and girls, done it across genders, that they weren't bothered because football's still very much in its infancy, I think, in the States, particularly at grassroots level. But they want to do everything right, and that's really nice to go into a sport where you start coaching on a Sunday here, and everyone on the sideline's already an expert. So they've all got an opinion, and it's very hard to combat. But as soon as you're over there, everyone's like, no, we'll take what you say. Like, you're the expert. Well, they're very respectful in that sense. So that was nice to have that bit of freedom, and gave me sort of like a real confidence boost to try new things and be innovative with it, as opposed and in a completely judge-free environment, which was really nice.
Wow, that sounds amazing. That's not a bad tour, is it? Across all these different countries. Sounds brilliant.
Sorry, you'd frozen.
Oh. There we go. It's all right. We can edit this. Don't worry about that. But I was just saying, yeah, it sounds great. It's taken you across, numerous countries, and what an experience.
So, are you back? Sorry, it keeps freezing.
Oh,
No,
I'm back
okay,
now. No, I was just saying, it's taken you across all these countries, and what an experience.
Yeah, really good. And the thing that I like about going to different countries, and even if you can't speak a language, football is the language. So it doesn't matter where, I went into places where I couldn't speak any language at all. Like when I was in Portugal, there was a little concrete area where you literally just throw a ball in the middle and then everyone's just playing with each other and you don't have to speak a language. And that's what I really like, that football gives you that level playing where you can just go and enjoy it for what it is. And there's no one saying, oh, you should have done this, or you should do this, or what do you think about this, and VAR, and, so it is football in its purest sense, and that's what I like.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone loves VAR, don't they?
Even the Sunday at the Arsenal game, never a penalty.
Well, talking about the women's game, wow. There's a lot being said lately at the moment, isn't there, for women in football? But I saw a record get broke that weekend. I think you were there, weren't you, at the Emirates?
I was lucky enough to go. So I've got a couple of friends who work at Arsenal, so they sorted me out with some box tickets, which was very nice of them. Very posh, yeah. I'm not usually like that. I'm very much to be in the terraces, but if it's going to be, arguably one of the biggest games of the WSL season, why not go in style?
Well, why not? Well, you've also witnessing they broke, was it the attendance record, over 59,000 at the Emirates?
Yeah,
for that
I think
game.
if you look at Arsenal's, because they've had the opportunity now to play at the Emirates a few times, their average crowd attendance is something like 33,000, which is like remarkable across any football. And then it makes you wonder why people don't see the value of it when you have teams like, no disrespect to them, but Stevenage and Burton who barely get 2,000, and you pack out the Emirates for a WSL game. People say there's still no demand there, but there evidently is.
It's a game absolutely on the up. I think with the Lionesses, been pivotal, haven't they, since winning the game, raising the profile of the women's game, and you're seeing top players. You and I we've worked together a few times on a few events, and I've been lucky enough to work with some women footballers, and hands down, I'd say I've seen them score better goals than half of the blokes I've seen in League One and League Two. So I'm sure you have as well.
Yeah, some terrible games. Not just Southend ones, but just terrible ones in general.
But as a female coach, we saw it was publicised quite well. Was it last week, maybe the week before, that you had a wonderful experience with White Ensign?
Yeah, so I've been really lucky with the whole setup there. So this is sort of like my fourth season in the Essex Senior League in the men's setup. So I was with Southend Manor before, and now I'm at White Ensign. So the management team there have been really nice. They've been really good to me. I made quite a clear point that if I go anywhere, for any team, male or female, that I always want to give, and I always want to give something and be able to improve players, or what can we take away and what can we give people. So it's really important that I'm never there as a token, or it looks really good for us as a club, or because I would hate that. And I think if you speak to anyone who works in football, they'll always want to give something, and they always want to give, whether that's a player or a physio or a coach, they always want to make players better, and they always want to improve other people as well as themselves. So it's nice that we all chip in and we all muck in, and for Aaron to trust me for 2 games, one in their Essex Senior Cup against Canby, so a team that's 2 leagues above, and then a league game on the Friday night against Ilford, which was a massive game. So it just shows that I said the same thing on BBC Essex. It shouldn't matter whether you're male or female. If you're good enough and you're there on merit, then you're there on merit. I think every person, every female. I'm quite. We've got a women in football network, and we always say every single one of us would hate to be there because they think we should be there because we're a woman. We should be there because we're there on merit, and we've worked hard. Notably, every woman that I speak to that works in football has had to work probably 10 times harder than every male that's in the sector anyway, because they've played at a certain level. They automatically get a right that they can then go and coach or work at a certain level. Girls don't have that. So, you definitely have to. It was a good experience. I don't know whether managing full-time yet is for me, but I'm happy to dip in and out of it for sure. I like to be a decision maker.
Yeah, well, you're certainly being a role model as well, trailblazer, breaking down those barriers, because as you say, women do it, unfortunately, have to work twice as harder in the men's game. Yet if a man, ex-player or coach went into the women's game, I see it's a bit of a walk-in as well. It needs to be a two-way street, and these barriers do need to be broken down, don't they, in the men's
absolutely.
game?
And I think what people forget, if I don't want to give him too much airtime, but if you look at what Joey Barton's saying about, punditry and females, and they've never been in a Champions League final and things like that. Well, what people forget is women's football was banned for such a long time, and really accessible women's football has only been around probably 3 years. And even I remember watching the World Cup in Canada, and that was on 2 channels. Like you couldn't, and you had to watch it on iPlayer, and then you had to watch it on something else. So really, every single woman that's grown up, that's of my era or my generation, that's working in football, has grown up watching the men's game. So they know how the tactics work. They understand what the physicality is like. So it's nothing new to them just because they played in a different version of the sport. Football still, we still have the same rules, we still have the same goals, we still have the same amount of players. So actually, yes, there are differences, and those differences should be respected. But we've all grown up watching men's football. We watched, women's England games weren't even televised until 2015. So there was a hell of a long time that I've grown up, particularly. I was 25 when that happened. So, a good chunk of my life, I grew up watching men's football. I still grow up watching men's football. I watch men's football live all the time. So I think that's easily forgotten. They're like, oh yeah, you've been in women's football, so just stay there. Football's football at the end of the day.
Football for all, as DFA says.
All, exactly.
Yeah. But then, so you've coached, you've managed, and you've got a little baby, haven't you? That you've given Southend United.
But I do treat.
No.
I spend enough time there, yeah. So yeah, he's my little baby. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us a bit about that then.
So the Southend ladies set up. I set that up in 2015. So originally we set it up for an under 16 bracket, so we could then transition girls into our college program, so our BTEC program, so getting females in general involved in sport. So they'll come and learn a level 2 or level 3 BTEC in sport, and just showing them that there's more careers out there than just being a PE teacher or a physio or a sports scientist. There are loads and loads and loads of different jobs that you can do. Like my job 15 years ago didn't even exist. So when they say, oh, what do you want to do when you're older? I didn't have a clue. I just enjoyed sport and I just did what I wanted to do. So it's an ever evolving cycle, which is really nice. So we set that up, and then they went. We put a poster out. And we thought, oh well, if we can get one team, that would be great. So we wanted like a squad of 16. We had our trial day, and we had 74 girls turn up for one age group. Wow. So we was really surprised. We were like, oh. So there was a demand for it even then. So we set up 2 teams. They had their inaugural season, and then at our biggest, sort of like 3 or 4 years later, we had over 100 girls from under 10s all the way up to under 18s in the setup. So we grew really quickly, and then we had to sort of plateau a bit, and we decided we had a bit of competition locally because at that time we didn't have a ladies team. So we had competition from the likes of C&K Basildon, as they were then, Billericay, because they had established women's teams, but they had nothing underneath. So we were the complete opposite to them in that respect. So we lost a few teams to them, and they went over, and that was fine at that time. I was probably more angry at the time, but we knew that we was always building something bigger. So we made the ladies team. and that's been going for this is our 6th season. So it took me 5 years to get silverware, but it was
Yes.
so we got silverware
I was
last
going
year.
to say.
Yeah, so we won the county trophy last year. The girls absolutely battered me for crying when we won, but I was like, you don't know what I've been through, like almost nearly 10 years later, to finally get that. And, you know,
Wow.
we had Southend men's team fans that had come over just because they are, you know, you're wearing the same kit, you're wearing the same badge. So, you know, you're part of that family. So that was probably the first time, particularly last year, off the back of the Euros, really, that we had felt support, and we were starting to be really included within that community and that family of the club, well, especially from the supporters. And then we was lucky enough to get promoted last year as well, so it was double whammy. So we're now in tier 6. We're second in the table, so we're absolutely flying. You know, it's really nice because when I see people out and about, they're like, "Oh, how are the ladies team doing?" Like, I'm going to come over to a game, and some of these people can't. You know, they are regulars at Roots Hall, so that's really nice. So we always try and do a tannoy. We've now got our own page in the programme. So there's all like these little things. It's just like a little nod to, yeah, we're here, we're doing our own thing, but don't forget about us. So I'm excited for where it can go, particularly with the takeover.
Yes.
I've had a really good few conversations with Justin about what that's going to look like going forward. And him, Kevin, John
Oh,
Steele came to our game. You know, we had what a game for him to come to. We had, you know, best part of 200 people there. We raised loads of money for breast cancer. We won 8-2, I think it was. So it was a really good game for him to come. And he's like, "Is every game like this?" And I was like, "No,
brilliant.
normally it's pissing down with rain. I'm really muddy, and it's a 1-1 scrappy draw." But yeah,
Oh,
so I'm
fantastic.
really excited for where it can go, and I know a lot of fans have said to me, "Oh, are you going to play at Roots Hall? Are you going to do like? Is there a, you know, it'd be love to see them there." And they're all things in the pipeline, and I think a real bucket list for me as a fan is to be able to stand in the dugout at Roots Hall and be the Southend ladies coach for sure. That's a real big. And now I know we're not moving. That's nice
Oh,
to hopefully be able to do that at Roots Hall
mm.
too. So for someone who's grown up, you know, I've been going since day dot. So I don't ever take for granted when I walk out of the tunnel every Saturday for the men's game and I'm walking around. I never take that for granted. I do know how lucky I am to be working in a professional environment in football. So yeah, that would be a real bucket list for me, I think.
Oh, we would love to see that at Roots Hall. That would be outstanding, wouldn't it? Fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if any of our listeners wanted to go and see a women's game, so when is the next home game and where do we go and how much is it?
So our games are always free. So there's no charge at all. So they're always free. Our home games are at Garrans Park. So on the 4G, always, yeah. So don't have to worry about mud or anything like that. But it is always windy. I will say that. We are actually at home this Sunday on the 17th. We've got a cup game against local rivals, Lee Ramblers. So that should be an interesting game. We've got a few ex-players that are for both sides, so that'll be good. 1:30 kickoff. But if you follow on our social medias, our next game after Christmas, that's our last one before Christmas. Then we've got a bit of a break, and then we're back on I think it's the 8th or the 9th that weekend. But all of our social media will have our fixtures on. So it's at Southend UTD Ladies on Instagram and Twitter, and then just Southend United Ladies, I think, on Facebook as well. So we do really appreciate all support that we can get, particularly from fans. And it's nice because they're like, "Oh, it's better than what I thought it was going to be." So I don't know whether that's a compliment or not. Yeah, sort of what you was expecting, but yeah,
Always.
no,
Yeah.
it's nice. So we actually got 5 girls selected to play for Essex. From our current squad. So we found that out. And then 2 of the girls, Chloe Willoway and Ellie Nichols, actually represented them against Jersey FA last week. They didn't come out winners. They lost 2-1. But we've never had girls represent Essex before. So it just shows where the club, to have 1 player selected, let alone 5, just shows the calibre of player that we're now able to recruit. And hopefully we can get up that pyramid to a place where we can really make a difference and start, you know, holding our own. Yeah.
Well, not only recruit, but also
Yeah.
coach as well. Yeah, the quality of coaching,
Absolutely.
you can, bring the players in, but But that is fantastic. That is really good. So yeah, we'd love to be keeping tabs on, what goes on with the football club across the whole ring. So it'd be great if we could get maybe one of the Essex number 11. Well, who's it? Was it? I can't remember who scored. She was a Southend girl, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Who scored the
Ellie
goal?
Nichols, yeah, she
Yeah,
scored,
yeah.
yeah.
It'd be great to get her on if she's not busy. Maybe sometimes,
maybe,
or will be your
Yeah, I'm
captain.
sure,
A bit of a
I'm
nudge
sure
there.
most of them are quite forthcoming. Actually, their personalities, to be fair. So I'm sure they'll be more than happy to come on and have a chat about it. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. Well, I'm definitely going. I'm only down the road. I live down the road now from Garin, so I'm coming down Sunday. I'm going to bring my
Nice.
kids, without a doubt.
Oh.
We're going
It
to
was
come and
really
see
nice
that.
actually.
Be
So
great.
we had a game about 5 or 6 weeks ago now, and we always go to the Walnut Tree after games. That's sort of like where we frequent for a cold beverage after games. And there's two Southend fans, a gentleman, I don't know how old he was, maybe late 30s, I don't know, might have done him injustice there, with his daughter. And they were in the pub and they were like, oh, we were just at your game, like, can we have a photo? And it was like the first time I got really emotional. I was like, oh, that's so nice, because we want their first experience to be a football. Like, my first experiences of football were drunk, overweight men shouting abuse at referees. But actually, her first experience is an environment where everyone's really encouraging, everyone's really nice to each other, albeit there is sometimes bad language from me. But yeah, so that's like, and I think you're just giving people that nice environment to their first experience of football. Should be that. It shouldn't be effing and grinding. Yeah,
absolutely.
so that was really nice.
Yeah, big positive
Yeah.
experience as well, and seeing that representation in that environment is only going to inspire, isn't it? And yeah, next time you have open trials, you might end up having half of the city turn up just to jump on it.
I
Sounds
know.
great, absolutely. Well, so what next? If you get promoted, was that tier 5 then you'll move up into? Is that full time? Are you full time at the minute, or are you
No,
part time?
we're very much grassroots still at the moment. So due to funding and things always going up, so we had like an hour and a half on a Thursday. So for me, I would love to be able to have, a training ground at least. So we train at Garen's, so we have to pay the same as everyone else. We have the same access as everyone else. So trying to better people in like an hour and a half once a week is really difficult. But we've got a sports and rehabilitation guy, Tom. He's really good this year, so we brought him on board. He's been amazing. Like, we had 3 or 4 long-term injuries that have come back quicker than what we thought. So he's been an absolute godsend to have. And invest in things like a VO cam so we can do analysis. That's probably the next thing that we can do, and then we'll start getting things like sports trackers, so we can do loads, and I can send girls off to do sessions within the week that will coincide with what we do, and then they won't be too loaded and things like that. So there's loads of things that we can implement from the men's game, particularly at non-league at Ensign, into the women's, because they're both non-league and there is money, but we've been really lucky that every single player this year is sponsored. So that's been amazing. We've had people that, normally it's friends and family, but we've had companies say, we really want to back you, we love what you do, we're happy just to sponsor anyone. So that opportunity has been really, really helpful for us. I'm trying to get that extra support. So if there is anyone listening who wants to invest in the women's team, I'm happy to have that conversation with open arms.
Maybe. Fantastic. Yeah, get on the socials,
Absolutely.
make contact. Yeah, that'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? Imagine that, moving into full time, having a little bolt-ons, boots and laces with your own little kind of,
I went to
training
I went
arena.
to Brighton a few weeks ago, and they've got a completely separate women's section, albeit it's a WSL dream. Like, we're very much, that is a long term plan, but just to have little snippets of that and be included, and being able to have a pitch at the new training ground that we can have 2 evenings a week would be completely change the whole way that we operate. And I know there's costs and implements to that, but I mean, if we're not going to have an academy, why not invest in us?
Yeah, the potential is certainly there, and the demand is also there. And if you're already getting sponsorship in, it sounds like a bit of a no-brainer, really, doesn't it? Why not invest in that women's game and then, get us up to scratch? It'd be fantastic. But yeah, brilliant stuff. Well, wish you all the best. Yeah, fingers crossed indeed. But we're going to go back full circle now, back to the Community and Education Trust, because I've got to bang the drum of how good, because obviously my day job working with Show Racing and the Red Card, we've done a lot of work with you. I must say that Southend United, especially the Trust, are probably one of the most proactive community trusts that I work with in the south of England. You do an awful lot of work in the city, don't you? That I think not a lot of our fans know about, really, unless you're really going to the club. I reckon there's probably 20% of people would know what the Educational Trust does. But you mentioned it earlier on about all the work you do in the community, don't you? And I mean, how long has that been going on at Southend, the trust?
So we've been a charitable trust since 1992. So we've been there a long time. I think what a lot of people, there's a misconception around is, if I give money to you, then it's just going to get swallowed into a big pit. It's really not. So we're a completely independent charity in our own right. We just have the kudos of wearing the badge, having the brand, accessing players and tickets, and being based at Roots Hall is a big bonus for us. So we've been going a long time. When it first started in the 90s, I think, Frankie Banks set it up, the legend that he is, and still is to this day. He still comes in pretty much every day and delivers on sessions. He delivers our walking football sessions. And he's a real idol of mine, albeit I don't tell him because he doesn't like any of that stuff. But it used to be, ex-players used to go and deliver holiday camps in the holidays, in the summers and at Christmas. And people used to turn up with a bag of balls and that was it. But community schemes, every single club in the country will have a setup that is a charity. And what the work that they do is invaluable to a football club and the local community that it provides. Last year, I think we had a social impact value of nearly 15 million. So, and that's being, in my opinion, probably underfunded. We don't have loads and loads of money. We don't have loads of resource, but we do well with what we have. And the impact that we could have, if we have a nice new stadium and we can actually have facilities that can be used, like nice lounges to do events in, like when you guys come, we're in the Shrimpers bar, we're cleaning mushrooms off toilets before you can even go in there. So, that's also not part of my job, but I end up doing it. So having, nice new facilities and not worry about having wheelchair access for participants, or if you have a colostomy bag, there's a hook on every door for you to be able to put your bag up. Like having sanitary products in the female toilets. All these things should just be a given. They shouldn't be nice to haves. They should be an absolute given. So the scope that we have can be absolutely massive. It can be massive, and the impact that we can have. We engage with, nearly 100,000 people a year. Best part of, on very very limited resources. So, we've got a Christmas soccer school at the ground. There's 200 kids come in. There's 3 venues a day before where there's going to be 180 kids. So the players, we can have players at those sessions, albeit it helps. But when you're combating a narrative like we have for the last 2 or 3 years, you have to keep having the conversation of, but these are all the benefits. There's so many more benefits that outweigh all the bad stuff, because there's just one guy making a decision about a football club doesn't affect what we do. So it has been hard. It has been tough. And it's hard to differentiate. Like I get, like I wear a kit, I'm in and around the town, and I go to sessions and I represent the club, and I get that. But I've had times over the last couple of years where I've been out in Tesco and people have been like, "Oh, have you been paid? Have you been paid?" All right, well, for one, it's a very sensitive subject. I wouldn't come and ask you whether, if you worked at Wilco and they're in administration, you go into Wilco up to the lady on the till, be like, "Oh, have you been paid? Are you going to keep your job? What's going to happen if you lose your job?" So it has been a really, I had a period of time where I didn't wear my kit out, and I went, incognito, I guess. But I'm still very, very proud of the club and everything that it is. And we're now coming out the other side of that. But it has been difficult the last couple of years for all staff. And they've been a real credit to people. Said to me all the time, like, oh, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you just go and find another job? Because it's when you have a job that's in you, and the reason that you do it is to give people opportunities that they never had. Like that's what it is for me. I go to work every day and I give young girls, young boys the opportunity to do things and have things and think in a way that I never did. And that's the reason why I do it. And I do it with the badge on my chest. And that is the best thing about my job, because Southend has absolutely changed my life. And I know that's like really cheesy, but it really has like changed my life completely. And I owe a lot of what I've done to the club. You know, I remember going to Frankie Bank soccer schools with my older brother, and I got a trophy for being the only girl when I was about 7. But luckily it's not like that now. You don't get a trophy for being a girl, but I definitely deserve one. So, you know, it's been in me from such a young age, and I don't want people to have a bad opinion of the club and everything, because at its core, it's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, it is an absolute community club, isn't it? Built by the fans, for the fans.
Yeah.
And like I said, everything that the trust does. I mean, all the good work you do, and I've got to give him a shout out. Otherwise, you'll probably give me a slap. But good old Dan King out there, he's been fantastic. And also John White, former captain. He's in the team, is it? Like every time something goes right, does he do a knee slide across the office or anything like that?
Not quite. He's a lot more subtle than that. No overhead kicks when he gets really excited. So, so he had to get his head glued, unfortunately, because obviously he's still playing at Braintree. So he was like, "Sorry, I'm gonna be a little bit late, Dan. I've got to get my head glued." So he's okay now. He's got a nice little scar on the top, but it's great to have someone like him. And you know, sometimes players, they're in their own little bubble of, you know, I just got to get results. I've got to get 3 points. We've got to do this. And when they come out to sessions, and I always encourage, so I do all the player appearances, and I liaise with all the players around community engagement. So when you have those conversations with the players and they come and see what you do, and just by them turning up and kids having, you know, Cardwell on the back of their shirt and then him turning up, the looks on those faces you'll never be able to replace, and you'll never be able to recreate. We have a lot of conversations with the players. You know, I go in at the beginning of every season and I say, look, don't ever underestimate the power that you have. And just because you think, oh, I'm only at Southend, I'm not at Liverpool or Man United, don't think the impact. If anything, you can make a bigger impact, because you can spend more time with these kids, and you can spend, and that's where lifelong fans are made. They really are. So when we give, you know, tickets out to schools, like we've got a school come in on Saturday, the whole school's got nearly 300 tickets. And if they have a really good experience and we put on a great game, which I'm sure we will, they'll be, you know, tugging on their mum and dad's shirt going, oh, I want to come again. I want to come again. So just those little things that the community can do and offer with the support of the club, you know, can build that fan base going forward. And that's what I want to do. And that's part of my job role, is, you know, developing fans for the future.
Yeah. And I certainly do that. I mean, every time we do our events there, and the excitement in the room, we had Big Colin, Louis Lomas, Wes Fongook, Steve Arnold when he came in last year. Deffens. The power, like you said, the power of the role model. They are, but you know, in the communities, you walk in with your local hero, and it can change people's perception in an instant. And like you say, get them hooked for life. A shrimper for life.
Albeit, I do give them a slight warning of it's not always up and down. It's not always up. Trust me. But that's the part of it. That's the love of it, right? I remember when we had Jason Demetriou at a soccer school, and it'd been raining all day. So what we've done is like, we were like, oh, we'll do it in a classroom, and all the kids were watching. He walked in and all the kids were watching his red card for Cyprus. And he was going, please don't recreate that. Please don't recreate that. So then we started showing Southend goals. We tried to create that. So at our soccer schools, we try and have like a Freddie Eastwood free kick competition, and, you know, John White's overhead kick competition, and just things like that, and just try and tie in all of those good things that the club do, build on those moments.
Now you need the North Hussein volley from the edge of the area competition now, don't you?
Jack
Yeah,
Bridge
that's the
penalties,
next one's
maybe.
got to be. Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely. Why not? Fantastic. Well, and April, we're going to have to stay in touch because what I'll do is I'm going to try and get down to the on
great.
Sunday, and as I only live at the end of the road, I'm going to come and see the game as well because we'd love to get the women's team more involved in our podcast, of course. And it'd be great to get some players on and just keep documenting your success and help champion your little baby, your football baby, as it were, all the way into that WSL full-time dream. But of course, so if anyone wants to sponsor the club or know more information, of course, get over to your socials as well. And please check out the Southend United Community Education Trust as well. They're all on the socials. We'll give all of the links as well in the in our pod after this interview as well at the end. And but April, it's been absolutely brilliant chatting with you. Thank you so much
for having me.
Fantastic.
Paul, massive thanks for sorting that interview out with April, who really is Mrs. Southend by the sounds of it. We want to give as much exposure to the women's game and the women's team at Southend as we can. So you've got their Twitter or X handles there?
Yeah, absolutely. Go over onto X and check out Southend United Ladies FC, and they are at Southend UTD LFC. And also, please check out the Southend United Community and Educational Trust. See all of the good work that they do in our city, and you can find them on X as well, and that is at SUFC Community.
Good stuff. It's now everyone's favourite time of the show as we look forward to putting that FA Trophy exit behind us and focusing back on what's important, which is the league. So now it's time for
Paul's previews.
Paul, we've got Bromley at home this Saturday, welcoming them to Roots Hall. They're high-flying, second in the league, going to be a tough one. What have you got for us?
Well, I cannot wait for this one because, again, when we're up against it, we seem to raise our game. And, well, Bromley are no exception. You know, look what we did to Chesterfield.
Yep.
I think we're going to have a similar kind of thing going on here. I mean, Bromley, they're insane at the moment. You know, they're up there for a reason. Last 11, they've won 8, drew 2, only lost a game, scoring 22, conceding 11. So they can, you know, they do concede. Their away form is ridiculous. And I had to go back for their last 10 games because they've won 4, drew 5, which is interesting, losing just the one game, banging in 14 but conceding 10.
Right.
So, you know, there is opportunities to be had. I mean, to be fair, they've lost only twice on the road all season, which is outstanding. And, well, their danger man, Michael Cheek. Cheeky lob.
Cheeky dink.
Well, he's going to be a pain in the cheek because he's already scored 10 this season. So we need to keep him quiet.
Yeah.
But the Bromley, always a good game when they're in town. I think they beat us last time they came down to the Hall. We can beat them. We can beat anyone in this league. So, you know, we need to put the disappointment of that cup exit behind us, get back to what we're doing. And, taking on Bromley, welcoming them to the Hall.
Exactly. It looks like it's going to be a really good game. And, you know, I just don't think Southend have got anything to fear against anyone towards that top end of the table. I think if they play their game, play their football, they'll make chances and they could, you know, score against anyone. So it should be a really good one. So we hope to see some of you down there. Big thanks to all of you guys out there listening to Shrimperscast. Massive thanks to our guests today, D1versity and April Smith. And keep your ears peeled and your eyes peeled for another episode next week. Make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast, and we'll see you next week. Up the Blues.
Up the Blues.